Good morning, Facebook, Instagram family. Thank you guys for joining me this morning for another episode of Back to the World. My brother and my sister's keeper. I'm Tony. I normally come on, guys, at 10 o'clock. Man, this morning I had a ton of calls, man. I had many calls from a lot of my compadres, if you will, a lot of business partners, and quite a few guys that I served time with. I'll get to the crux of that. But my name is Tony. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Back to the World. My brother and my sister's keeper. I am Tony. Any music that you may hear in the background, we don't own the rights to. But any comments, questions, anything that you care to share, man, hit us in the boxes down below. I'd like to get your views and your opinion on certain subjects and everything. Again, it's a beautiful day. We got a slight overcast. It was foggy earlier, but it's beautiful right now. I mean, the sun's out. It's kind of burning off the fog, and the clouds are moving, so it's going to be all right. But at any rate, we have some merchandise that we want to push, right? And for starters, we're going to talk about Sonetquity Book Club, right? Sonetquity Book Club, we are a retail bookstore, all right? And we furnish and we supply books, man, to all of our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated the whole bit. We're going to be sending out more flyers and everything, man. I want you guys to register online and make your monthly purchases from us. Also, all the other book clubs that are online, man, we can only assist our community by our community assisting us. It's a fair exchange, and it has to be that way because that's the way the universe works. You know what I'm saying? We have to reciprocate. So, for all of you that's online and you are in book clubs, man, if you can, go to our website at www.bookshop.org/shop/Sonetquity. All right? Go and buy all your readings from us. And for any of you out there who has family members that are incarcerated, trust me, reading is a major pastime for them. Reading gets them through the days, through the weeks, through the months, through the years, definitely. And I added up how many books I read per month. And it varies, really, it does, because it depends on the book and how good it is, and I'll go straight through it. But it took me away, and I read at least 4 books a month. I read at least 4 books a month for 25 years. That's anywhere between 1,200 to 1,500 books my entire time. Now the crazy part is, had I been free, I probably would have read at least maybe 800, because I was a major reader. I wasn't a part of a book club, but I ventured bookstores, man, and magazine shops, wherever, gift shops at the airport. Through all my travels, I would buy all different magazines. So when I was incarcerated, I read 4 newspapers. And 2 finance newspapers, and I would get anywhere between 20 to 25 magazines. Now, I'm reading all of these magazines, I'm reading all of these publications from cover to cover. So I spent a lot of my time reading. And if you look at it, I read 40 magazines. I read anywhere between 20 to 40 magazines a month. And I wouldn't just look at the pictures. I stayed up on everything that I was interested in. I got magazines and publications for that. Finance, I had Forbes, I had Entrepreneur, I had Black Enterprise, I had the IBN, I had the Wall Street Journal, right? Then when technology came about, I would get Wired, and I would get a bunch of other tech magazines as well. Then I had Rob Report, DuPont Registry, Cigar Aficionado. I had DuPont Boats. I had yachting. I had books on dogs. I had a Press Canario. A lot of people are just getting into the Cane Corsos and the Press Canario. Well, I was gifted a Press Canario in 1990. 1990, I had a Press Canario that got to the weight and the size of 246 pounds. He was a behemoth, and the doctors that I used to take him to, the vets that I take him to, they were calling it a pit. They didn't know what it was. And he grew so fast. And one day he crushed the spine of a pit. And I had to pay for those damages. And I had to pay for them to put that dog down. And then one day my dog bit. The doctor gave him a shot. And after they pulled the muzzle off my dog's face, he grabbed the doctor's hand and he applied just enough pressure to let him know that he was serious. And if I wasn't at the window watching this, I would not have believed it. My dog crushed down on his hand, not to break his skin, but just enough for him to get the message. And then he looked in his eyes. He didn't bark, he didn't growl, he didn't do any of that. And that's when I knew he was a dangerous dog. And then he released that dog. And at that point, he released that doctor's hand. And that particular vet was close to my house. But he didn't want to deal with my dog anymore. So I had to take my dog to a large animal vet in not Rosenberg, but it was on this side, going out to Rocheron. I had to take my dog to a large animal doctor, 246 pounds, ladies and gentlemen. And he was a presser. And these dogs would climb because they were wild dogs. He would climb and he would get on the roof of my house. And he'd just stand and perch there and he'd look over the neighborhood. You know, I love this dog. And his name was Genghis Khan. I named him Khan. And I missed that dog. I didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with him because I traveled a lot. So I let a friend of mine take care of him. And then at that point, man, he guarded a salvage yard. He would bust tires and everything, man. Burst. I use the term burst. He burst tires. But anyway, that's the presser. So I did all this reading, man. And I tell you, I was so packed with information. But anyway, so you can visit our site, man, and purchase your copy of Business Always Personal. This is my book, and it's on our store, our online store at www.bookshop.org/shop/Sonetquity. Okay, www.bookshop.org/shop/Sonetquity. Or you can go straight to Amazon.com and purchase your copy. All right. We also have an amazing hair care product, man. And it's not just a hair care product, it's good for skin as well. And the name of that product is Botana Oil. Dr. Sibi recommends it. I mean, it's good for hair, it's good for skin, it's good for alopecia, it's good for psoriasis and eczema. Okay? We sell this retail. DM us. DM me. Place your order. 2 ounce or 4 ounce. And I'll send the price to you. Alright? DM us. We also have 2 other programs that can help benefit you, and one would be our drop shipping program. Our drop shipping program consists of you marketing our product on your site, on your Facebook, or whatever your social media is. All right? You can market our product. For everyone that places the order with you, you deduct $3 from that sale, and you forward their order, their information, and their address and everything to us, plus the money. Please don't forget that. And we will drop ship that merchandise for you. That's one way of paying it forward, and us helping you help us. Okay? Now, if you're interested in starting your own brand, this is ours. But if you're interested in starting your own brand, inbox me, and we can talk about it. And then you can purchase your own containers, right? You can market it and give it a name, and we can supply you. We can be your wholesale, right? We can be your wholesaler. We can be your plug. And this is how we can ship it. This is a container. This is one container, right? This has 34 ounces in it. This is our 2-ounce jars. So you can purchase these, and we will definitely be your plug. All right. This is not just a fly-by-night deal, man. We will furnish you your leaders. DM us for the price. Inbox us, and we'll give you the price of everything. And let you know what everything costs, a whole bit. But this is not just fly-by-night. If you start your own brand, we're here to support you. We're here to supply you. This is 1 liter, straight from Honduras, 100% pure, raw. This is what a liter looks like. Okay? So anybody telling you that they're getting it uncut, if it's not like that, what I just shown you, the whole bit, then it's not the real deal. All right? Oh. But anyway, on with the show. I got bunch of calls came in, man, this morning. Well, actually, they were texting me all last night. A bunch of calls came in this morning. A whole bit. It took me a while to get back to doing this podcast. I wanted to be on at 11 o'clock. I mean, at 10 o'clock. Would have been off by now. But I don't know how many of you may be familiar with the Rayful Edmond story. And Rayful Edmond passed away on yesterday. He had a major heart attack. He was just released from prison maybe 3 months ago, 2-3 months ago, right? And for many of you that may not know the story, Rayful Edmonds was a drug kingpin in Washington, D.C., right? I mean, he had the city pretty much on lock. You have a lot of guys that will say, you know, I don't like necessarily saying that a certain person has shit on lock, because there are so many people that was probably under the radar, so many that was probably larger than him that was never caught. But be that as it may, he was making the most noise and he was disrupting the city, and so they had him labeled as the kingpin of Washington, D.C. Now, not by any means at that time was he a joke. He was getting money hand over fist, and whenever anybody came to D.C., they thought of him. But keep in mind, Alpo, may he rest in peace, he probably had a different opinion. So, but Rayful ended up getting caught up. He was making money hand over fist, and he used to gamble. He played basketball in high school and everything, and so he was a big fan of the Hoyas, Georgetown. So rumor has it that he used to gamble, and he used to support a lot of the basketball players, Alonzo Mourning and everything. He used to break them off a little bit. Well, George Thompson called him in one day, told him to leave his players alone. If you don't mind, man, just back up off his players and everything. So, that happened. Then in a certain area, a little youngster was murdered. I think he was 17-year-old. And it led back to Rayful. So Rayful was known, man, for going to the fights, the concerts, everything that happened, man. He went in style. Lots of jewelry with his crew. Everybody living, everybody riding nice. Everybody dressed nice. Well, when the feds got on to him, they arrested Rayful, and they gaffled up everybody else pretty much in his circle. And I don't know, many of you was watching it back in the day. You'll see Rayful at the airport. They had him at the airport with his green uniform on, and they flying him to prison in handcuffs, and they got guards behind him with guns, marshals behind him. And then he made the comment, "I'll be back, DC." He made that comment. He said that. Well, Rayful's mother, and I think someone else in his family, was convicted. And Rayful went down and took his time like a G. And he fought, he appealed, and he did whatever. So, after being transferred, he got to a prison where he was stationary for the most part, a maximum security prison. Rayful met a plug inside prison. Rayful was already living kind of good, doing his thing in prison, but he was laid back. So what happened, a lot of the foreigners and everybody liked his style, and he was well known. His name was big, man. As I said, Washington D.C. is the capital of the United States, so he had that city on lock. So he became known like Nicky Barnes and the whole bit out of New York. And as I said again, you had guys in all pockets of the country, man, that was making the same money or more money than Rayful. But Rayful got the notoriety, he got the publicity at that time. So anyway, Rayful met a plug in prison, and Rayful worked out a deal with his plug, and Rayful started moving work from prison. When it was all said and done, Rayful was doing so well. He was doing better than what he was doing when he was on the streets. He was making more money, and he had a better plug. So truly from prison, he had the entire city on lock, because he had so much access to work that everybody in the city that was working was getting it from him directly or indirectly. So the brother made a shitload of money. Again, more money from inside than he did outside. So the feds started watching him. They tapped his phones and they listening to his calls and everything in the whole bit. They was talking in circles, talking in trying to talk in code. So they listened to him and they watched him the whole bit. So finally they played a trick on Rayful, and they told him that they were on to what he was doing, and that they were going to indict him and the whole bit. So Rayful put his guards down, and he gave in. He was defeated. He said, "Hey, look, I'm tired anyway, man. I give up, and you know, y'all buy me a chicken dinner. Literally, y'all buy me a chicken dinner, man, and I'll sit down and I'll tell you the whole operation." Rayful went into a deal after that chicken dinner. I don't know if it was Popeye's, Church's, or whatever they ate up that way. And Rayful sat down, and he gave up the Colombians, right? And this is what I get. To be honest with you, you know, anybody in the feds, man, anybody that ratted, man, I don't care how powerful he was a piece of shit, right? But a lot of guys I know from up that way, man, sort of like what they did with Alpo. You know, Rayful just more or less ratted on the plug. Rayful ratted on most of the foreigners, the Colombians. So a lot of guys back in D.C. were still embracing Rayful, and they were embracing him like, man, you know, that was slick what he did, because he just ratted on the foreigners. You know, his name was still good in the city. He didn't fuck over nobody in the city the whole bit. You know, I don't agree with that. But be that as it may, that's them. We all have our own different philosophy, you see. And some people, man, you know, even though they weren't rats, they dealt with police officers. And police officers were like their right-hand men and the whole bit. Well, I didn't mess around with police officers of any kind, period. You know, because, you know, they took an oath. And if the heat gets too hot for them, what is it to get? You know, when they give you up, all they're doing is their job. And they will call it a great job done. A great job well done. So I think when you rat, you rat. So anyway, he ratted on the plug, man. And I think Blanca was a part of this. I think she was a part of this thing. She got caught up the whole bit. So, hey, what's going on, brother? So I was in a situation to whereas I ran into over the years I ran into one of his plugs. I had the opportunity to meet Rayful many years earlier before he blew up. I had an opportunity to run into him, right? And at that particular time, he was on the come up, and I was already up. And I met him in Vegas, and then in L.A. And you know, matter of fact, I was already cool with the guys that plugged him up. I was already cool with them. And for many of these guys, I was already working with some of them and the whole bit, and I was supplying them, right? Well, when I saw Rayful the whole bit, man, he was on the come up, so you know, he was real flashy the whole nine. Traveled with a bunch of guys the whole bit, so we would see each other in passing at different conventions and fights and the whole bit. We would just nod at each other, basketball games and things of that nature, playoffs. And when I heard that he got caught and I saw it on TV, I was like, wow, man, you know, they finally got this dude on this bullshit, right? But I had no idea that he would go out like he did and that he would rap. So I met a gentleman, a Colombian, a man by the name of Mr. Freddie Aguilar. Freddie was a major plug. And Freddie had short time. Freddie was going to be going home soon. Freddie was going into business with Rayful. And they talk about a lot of the famous known people that Rayful did business with, and people that he ratted on the whole nine. But it was because of Rayful that Mr. Freddie ended up getting a life sentence. And when I met Mr. Freddie, he was about the age that I am now. And we used to sit down and we used to talk. And I don't know if many of you know the story of the Ochoa brothers. Well, the Ochoa brothers were some of my plug. And I ended up, and they were billionaires, multi-billionaires, and they was a part of and partners with Pablo Escobar. And I worked directly under Pablo Escobar through his cousin and other associates. So when I got transferred to a federal penitentiary in Allenwood in Pennsylvania, I had the privilege to meet one of the older Ochoa brothers. And we used to eat together, man. You know, they'd spread the whole bit. When they realized who I was, you know, I showed them my paperwork and everything. They made sure that I wasn't a rat. And so I used to eat with these guys. So I would sit there, I'd eat with them, and I'd talk as best I could with many of them. But quite a few of them spoke very, very, very good English. So finally, this fair-skinned, snow white-haired gentleman that wore glasses, and he walked with a limp, with a cool limp, not a staggering limp. He had a cool limp, like as if one leg was shorter than the other. And he used to walk, and he had a swagger. He had a New Orleans swagger, but it was because of one leg being short for him, whereas many guys in New Orleans walked like that on purpose. So when I met Mr. Freddie, he used to bet on the soccer games and watch TV. So when Mr. Freddie heard through conversation who I was affiliated with, and you had some guys try to have, some guys on the streets try to rumor that I had a bad name. And they only did that because they owed me money and they didn't want to pay. So when I met Mr. Freddie was leery of me. And I'm telling you, that's a cold feeling, man, when somebody's feeling a certain way about you and you don't know. And I've had this to happen twice in the system. And there was some Colombian guys that I worked with up close and personal. People on the street had been saying that, and of course they were black. They had been saying that I was dirty. Well, one of the guys, man, used to come to my house the whole bit. He heard that, and when he ran into me in the system, he was standoffish, man. With this guy, man, he played with my kids. He'd bring his kids over, and when we met in prison, man, this guy, man, he did the Heisman, man. When I went to meet him and greet him and hug him, he stiff-armed me. And right then and there, I knew something was wrong. So finally, he broke down and he told me what it was and why he reacted that way. So I went and got all my paperwork, man. I laid it out on the table and I showed him. And when he saw that I was solid, and he squeezed me so goddamn tight, I was almost sorry that I showed him the paperwork, you know what I'm saying? But then everybody noticed, and they knew that there was some history between us. So fast forward, Mr. Freddie reacted the same way. He was cold to me. And finally we sat down and he asked me who I knew, and I was telling him the guys that I knew from Colombia. And they were pretty big guys. So when he saw that the Ochoas knew me and that I was good with them, so then he opened up to me. And then I showed Mr. Freddie my paperwork, and I showed them that I had beat the feds twice prior to that case. And man, Mr. Freddie fell in love with me, and he opened up. He didn't want to deal with me at first, man, because he said, I didn't want things to happen, the way it happened with this guy. I don't know if you know his name. I said, no. What's his name? He said his name was Rayful. He said, Rayful. I said, last name Edmond? He said, yes. I said, what happened? He said, he's the cause that I ended up getting a life sentence. He said, at first all I had was 15 years. He said, I had 15 years. I had 5 more to do. and I do business with this guy. And when this guy get caught up, he said the people don't even have him dead right. They just have suspicions. And he broke the whole story down to me. So I didn't get my story from a documentary or secondhand people, because I know a lot of people that was there from DC that knew of Rayful if they didn't know him personally. But there were some guys that knew him personally. But they wasn't a part of the rat Rayful. They was on the case with Rayful when he was silent. So not even them knew all of the details of how he ratted and who he ratted on. Well, Mr. Freddie didn't tell me everybody that they ratted on. He just told me how he ratted on him. And he said he used to sit down and talk. And he would give him a number, he would call, they'll put their deals together, the whole bit. Via three-way, the whole nine. And at that time, you was able to call direct from the federal prison. You didn't have to have that voice that comes on, the whole bit. Oh, Mr. Freddie told me how the entire operation went and how it crashed. He said all Rayful had to do was stop using the phone. Whenever anybody came to visit him, just give him the information that way, the whole bit, but Rayful continued over the phone. But on the interview in the documents of Rayful's case, Rayful told him that he was just tired.
Hello, Moto.
He told him that he was tired. Let me see something here. Yeah. Rayful said that he was tired. And I tell people this all the time, man. You can make so much money, man, until you get tired of making money. I've gotten that way to a degree at one time, but I wasn't so tired that I wanted to rat. You know? You got a lot of people that are called rats that really aren't. And then you have those who aren't called rats and they really are. Man, sometimes when I'm bored and I'm finished reading and I'm not doing these podcasts or whatever the situation is, man, I try to watch something on television. And I watch a lot of things, man, and I need to watch something that captivates me, that draws me in, that gets my attention, right? It has to be for two reasons, right? Just like I read anything, any subject matter, right? Because I want to understand the mechanics or the mindset behind this situation or this creation or this endeavor. So there's this station Tubi. So I watch Tubi, man, and you might have 1,000 movies on, and they all got the same plot. And I got to a point over the pandemic, man, where I'll just watch these movies no matter how stupid and how unreal they are. But see, when you see something enough, you know, it becomes a trigger. And just as art imitates life, life imitates art. So now it becomes a situation of where the tail wags the dog. In every movie, there's guys that are partners. They go into the drug business together. They grew up together. They got involved in the drug business. They became filthy rich. All of a sudden, a woman came into play, and they fell out because of the woman. So one set the other one up to get robbed or get killed or whatever the situation may be, but a woman will do it. Or the police will infiltrate them and act as a drug dealer, and he will bring the whole house down because one of the friends brought him in thinking he was cool. Or every stripper is a whore, and all she's about is the bag, and they're all setting these guys up. And it seems to be it seems to be par for the course. So when I watch these, man, they all start and they all progress and they all end the same. And when I watch this, man, I say, man, you know, this is the way it's being done, because, you know, after a while when people watch this, you have guys that want to act like that movie they've seen. So now they create that whole scenario. And now it becomes a genre. When everybody's doing it, it becomes a genre. It becomes a lifestyle. When I first heard the title for that movie, No Country for Old Men, I couldn't understand the meaning of that. I couldn't understand what that meant. No Country for Old Men. After I watched the movie, and after I started listening to a lot of young guys coming in prison, I realized that that business is not for old men. The entire industry has changed. The entire industry has changed, and everybody's doing it differently. Today, your dope supplier is a drug addict. He's just not doing the drug that he's selling, but he's a drug addict no less. And this is the guy that's calling the shots. This is the guy that's deranged. He has a dependency. He has a bipolar personality. So if he suspects someone is dirty or somebody's doing him wrong, and then that money gives you power, and it makes you carry out things, man, that you probably, had you not been distorted, you would not have done, and you would not have made that decision. So now in this business, every time you're dealing with someone, you have to wonder, are they a drug addict? Do they have a dependency? Right? And that's frightening, man. Every time you get ready to go re-up, whatever the situation may be, you're wondering if you're going to get killed because this guy suspects you of being dirty. Or some of his people may steal some of the monies, and now all of a sudden when he get the count, you're short a couple of thousand, just a few, and now he wants to kill you just to carry out a message. It's a scary, scary thought. And in my day, we didn't operate that way. We didn't operate that way at all. And I can remember coining a phrase, and I wanted to title a book, The Most Honest Man in a Dishonest Business. I wanted to give it that title, or The Cleanest Man in the Most Dirtiest of Business. I don't know, maybe you guys can DM me and let me know which one of those titles would fit. But these would, and I still want to put that book out. Because again, here's a third title. I wanted to be the fairest man. I wanted to be the fairest man in the most unfair business. You know? And you know, it's what your values are, and it's what you're made of. And see, I listen to guys give a definition of what a rat is and what a snitch is. And there is a difference, ladies and gentlemen. Both of them are wrong, I think. But a person that's a snitch, They would just about tell on anything or anybody, right? And they can be involved in your business or not. Nah, they can't be involved in your business, but if they're a snitch, they're on the outside and they're telling the people. Let's say somebody that lives in your community, and they see you driving all these fancy vehicles and everything, people pulling up to your house the whole bit, and they call the police randomly and put them in your life, and then you get caught up, and they're willing to tell on any and everything. That's a snitch. But a rat is someone that's doing business and being dirty just as you. They got just as much to lose as you or not. But they're circulating amongst you and your other members, if you will. And for whatever reason, they get caught up, but they don't want to go down. So they're going to tell on everybody. Right? That's a rat. That's a rat. Now, if he didn't get caught up the whole 9 yards, then he grows from a snitch to a rat. He will snitch and say something's going on because he want to destroy your business. Right? And his initial step made him a snitch. But when it all came together, he was a damn rat. And I don't care, you call it cooperating, he's a cooperating witness or whatever the situation is, he's a rat. Right? And back in my day, if someone ratted, they pretty much couldn't come back to the same city. Every rat is not a coward now, let me say that. In a sense, every rat is not weak in terms of the dangers that he can, the punishment that he can put out. But he was weak to the fact that he didn't want to go to prison. And then a lot of people consider that a part of the game, and they rat because it's a strategic chess move. I don't play that way, right? And I didn't want to be around anyone that played that way. Anybody that had a police in their circle, I don't care how cool that looks. And on television, people look up to people like that got police and everybody on their payroll. I didn't have police in my pocket, but I had politicians, if you will. And some of you might say, well, that's not too much different. Yes, it's very different. See, the police officer, you know, he was directly involved in the business that I was involved in. People staying free, people getting locked up. With politicians, it was for having certain permits walked through. If someone got busted, you was able to put them through the case, right? If someone got busted, or whatever the situation is, then you had the politicians up high. If they could, they can pull some strings and what have you, but not dealing with no direct police officer. So anyway, I try to stay shy of that, man, because if you're operating, you want to hedge your bets. But my thing is this, though: if you don't put yourself in these people's net, then you don't have to worry about having any of them on your side. You don't have to have it. And keep in mind, you got a police officer that's on the payroll. That means that he goes off to the highest bidder. He's already dirty. You know, so what's the sense that he's taking money from my competitor and he's taking money from me? And then there comes a situation where one offers him more money to take the other one down, and then that's what they'll do. See, part of my case, man, we had some dirty cops out of Louisiana, man. Literally, these police officers, man, arranged the murder of my brother. My brother wasn't working with them, nor was my cousin working for them. But the guys they were doing business with, they set my cousin and my brother up. And the police officers robbed my cousin and my brother and they murdered both my cousin and my brother. Also, there was a case where there was a guy that used to work for me, and he got caught up because he owed me a shitload of money, and he was on his way to pay me. And one of the other guys in that city had one of his police officers pull him over for a traffic stop, and then brought him back to them, and they tortured him and murdered him, and they robbed him. I lost money in that situation, and I lost money with my brother's situation. And this is from guys having police officers on their payroll. So, as I said, I just didn't operate that way, man. You know, I didn't function that way. But I think when you do that, you're really going for the low-hanging fruit, and you think that shit make you look. It gives you a false sense of power and security, because at some point they're gonna turn you in. They're gonna tell on you, or they're gonna rob you. They're gonna set you up. And I want nothing to do with that type of operation at all, right? So I don't know how the city of DC feel. I know we're going to read about it. There's probably going to be other podcasts. I'm going to go through YouTube and see what's going on and seeing what's being said. But I'm sure that there are quite a few people that are sorry or hurt or saddened by the passing of Rayful Edmonds, or Edmond. But then there are those who are glad of his passing. There are those who are celebrating him. There's a brother on here. I want to listen to what he has to say. The brother name is Unique Mecca, and I didn't serve time along with Unique Mecca, but Unique Mecca and I served time around the same time period, around the same time frame, and we ran into a lot of the same guys. We ran into a lot of guys in this country that had major names and had major operations. So there's many, many, many more of us other than Big Meech, Rayful Edmond, Supreme, if you will, Harry O. There are many of us that, a lot of Freeway Ricky, Freeway Rick Ross, a lot of us, we operated on that same level, and that same plateau. But we didn't have the name that was out there that was ringing where everybody knew us all over the country. And, you know, we didn't glamorize the lifestyle that way, man, because for many of us it was a business. It was truly a business. I think that many of us that have gone to prison and we got out, and I said this on some of my most recent podcasts, man, it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle for me, to say the least. I'm used to moving a certain way and moving at a certain level. But so many things have changed, and it makes me a dinosaur today. But I'm still with it. I'm still pushing, and I'm still trying to move forward. But for a lot of you young brothers out there, for a lot of guys that's my age that's been in this business, man, sometimes you should just sit down, have a seat, and then we just get into a conversation. And then you can pick our brain. Because there's nothing new under the sun. I don't care. See, look, being in the drug business, selling drugs, buying drugs, that has never changed. And that's something that's not. You got to have a seller and you got to have a user. There has to be a user in order for there to be a seller, right? And no matter what, the transactions are going to be a buyer and a seller. The only thing that changed, man, is the players. And when the players change, they bring their own plays to the game. I never called it a game. I always looked at it as a business. Because anything that can take you down and destroy you and lock you up for life or kill you, it's not a game. It's a business. But for those who look at it as a game, they think about it differently. And they think that everything has to be a chess move. It doesn't. Amazon, Facebook, none of these business people, the only time it becomes a chess move or a strategy is if they want to start a new platform or if they want to buy a business and take over that business the whole bit. Right? Now, subliminally, they could be thinking about how to destroy their partners. They could be thinking of ways to hurt their numbers, hurt their sales. They could. Because that's natural and that's normal. But they never call it a game. It's business. It's business. And a lot of that bullshit is par for the course. But you have to approach it a certain way. You can't be out here doing dumb shit. And the dirtier the business is, the cleaner you want to make it look. See, if I had a clean business, a very, very clean business that was making money that way and doing that, who cares how it looks when you know that it's legit? And sometimes people want to make their business look dirty just to keep the vultures away. But if the government comes, you just lay out your paperwork, man, and everything is cool. Everything is gravy. When I was a kid, I sold Kirby vacuum cleaners, right? And when I sold those vacuum cleaners, I used to go door to door, man. And I used to try to get people to buy those vacuum cleaners. And nobody wanted that vacuum cleaner at the time. We're talking in the 70s, and they're paying $300 for a vacuum cleaner. Well, a lot of people in the projects and everything outright couldn't afford that initially. But when I found it difficult to sell these vacuum cleaners, and when I would go to the white community, to the people that can afford them, even though they can afford them, they didn't want them. They didn't want them from a nigger, if you will. I don't like using that term, but they didn't want it from a nigger. An electrical cord. I started riding around, and something gave me the idea that I told them that the vacuums were stolen. And I used to have about 3 or 4 of them in my trunk. Maybe not 4, maybe 3 at the most. I would have 3 of them in my trunk. And I would tell them that I had some friends that got in a warehouse and stole these vacuum cleaners. That was my opening. And then I would give them a presentation on how I was trained. If they were smart, they say, nigga, you know too much about this, and this shit seems too real and too legit the way you're doing this, so it's got to be something in question. They didn't question that. All they knew is that I stole it. And these vacuum cleaners were going for like $500. And I was selling them for $300. Right? Well, I'm here to tell you, I sold so many of those vacuum cleaners, man, until the company was suspicious of me. And they let me go. Here's why. Because my receipts and my paperwork was written up. And I wasn't good at that. So a lot of my paperwork was having the same names and the same numbers to a degree. And that's the way it worked out, and they realized something was awry, but yet they didn't give me the money back. They didn't ask me to go get the vacuum cleaners back either. But because there was suspicion, they released me. But here's what I'm here to tell you. The people in the projects, the ladies in the projects and everything, they was buying more of these vacuum cleaners than the wealthy whites. But I still sold some to some wealthy whites that wouldn't normally let somebody like me in their homes. This was in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the early 70s, right? So the same thing happened when I was selling drapes. Everybody wants their houses, everybody wants their homes to look good. Everybody wants their homes to look good, right? So the ladies in the projects will spend their welfare money on the 1st and the 15th to buy up all of the drapes, bedspreads, panels, sheets, pillow covers. They would buy all this shit for me. But I was in a clean business that I made look dirty. You see? That's when you're playing chess, not checkers. Everybody's looking for a deal, right? The truth of it is, man, there's most of us that want something for nothing, a little nothing. There are so many things that sells like drugs. And the sale of drugs is one of the purest sales, one of the purest transactions in the world. You're not going to get too much that sell better than drugs. Because there's a demand, there's a need. And all you have to do is have the supplies. You don't have to force anybody to do it. You don't have to force anybody to buy it or anything. And the game is so pure, the business is so pure, you don't have to cheat. All you have to do is have a constant supplier. And if you have a constant supply, you're going to always have a constant demand. The only way you lose your customers is if they die or what have you. That's the only way you'll lose them, ladies and gentlemen. And this Patana oil, going back to this Patana oil, it sells that way. It sells that way. You know? And for online books, for online bookstores, right, and book clubs, 75% of those book clubs are women. That's out here what we call the free world. But you know where the men are purchasing the most books? And that's in prison. So if any of my viewers have anyone that's incarcerated, anyone that's locked up, I implore you to have your family members purchase their books from us. Every book that Amazon carry, we carry, because Amazon's supplier is our supplier. And when you're working for a plug, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know who else is working for that same plug, right? You're getting your merchandise from the same distributor. So there's nothing you're doing special other than that you have a group of people to serve that other person doesn't. And they're selling them the same merchandise. It's no different from a car dealership. How many Ford dealerships, a Chevy, a Cadillacs that you have in one city? Houston's a big city. Now if you're a small country town, you probably have one dealership that may sell 3 brands, or you just have one dealership of each vehicle. But in Houston, you have 4, 5, and 6, man. They're selling the same car. Number one, it's going to be proximity first. Who's the closest to you? After it's who the closest to you, who's going to give you the best deal? Who's going to give you the best service? See? And keep in mind, let's talk car dealerships for instance. See, dealerships make some money on the sale of cars. But that's not so much their bread and butter. Their bread and butter is the service. It's the service industry. They make a killing off of service. They pray that your car breaks down. They're going to sell you the parts. They got the warranty. They get paid off the warranty because they're getting money off the parts, because that makes it go around. Now keep in mind, see, once you buy the car, it's almost, if it's the drug business, once you buy the car, now you're hooked. You're hooked on their product. So they're going to continue to make money off you, off that product. If you never have to take your car in the whole bit, if no one has to take their car in, the company's not going to make too much money. But you can have a dealership that only sells a few cars a month, but they're servicing hundreds. That's the dealership that's making all the money. Okay? And the salesmen are no different from a drug dealer. They're pushing that product. Alright? Well, ladies and gentlemen, these dark clouds have moved over us here. And I can feel a mist. It's starting to rain a little bit. But I thank you guys for spending this hour with me. And again, thank you for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you guys again. It's coming down harder, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to bid you an adieu. Peace.